Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the Building a Professional Network workshop. My name is Gracie Golden, and I am the Senior Officer of Strategic Initiatives and Relocation at Artistic Freedom Initiative, a nonprofit organization that provides pro bono immigration representation and resettlement assistance to international artists from all disciplines facing censorship, persecution, humanitarian disaster, or armed conflict in their home countries. You can learn more about AFI at artisticfreedominitiative.org. I'll be moderating today's session for Onwards, the Opportunity Network for At-Risk Writers, Artists, Rights Defenders, and Scholars. Onwards is a collaborative effort by civil society groups and organizations that support displaced writers, artists, journalists, cultural work, and rights defenders and scholars. Onwards seeks to address challenges faced by displaced individuals through workshops that bring together subject matter experts and those with firsthand experience resettling in a new country. I want to mention that today's presentations will be recorded. The recording, PowerPoint, and other notes and resources will be posted to onwardsproject.org in the coming weeks. This is the 7th workshop in this series, and you can find recordings and notes from our other workshops on topics such as mental health, finding health insurance, job hunting, and navigating the US visa process on onwardsproject.org. Please direct all questions to the Q&A function on Zoom throughout the presentation. We will have a short time frame after each presentation for questions, with additional time for questions at the end. Today's topic is building a professional network. We know that establishing contacts and building a network is critical to restarting and continuing your career in a new place, but that it can be difficult to find and connect with others in your field. To that end, we have 2 fantastic speakers today, starting with Peggy Brannigan, and then we'll hear from Dr. Rana Mustafa a little later. Peggy is a sustainability leader, advisor, board member, public speaker, and mentor. Over the past 7 years, she established and led LinkedIn's Global Environmental Sustainability Program. Prior to her work at LinkedIn, Peggy worked in Europe for 12 years, advancing sustainability in roles at the US State Department and the International School of Amsterdam. Peggy earned an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business with a public management certificate, and she has an undergraduate degree in international relations from George Washington University. So now I will get the presentation up and turn it over to Peggy.
Thank you, Gracie and John, and thank you to each of you who joined the call today. I'm so excited to have the chance to talk to you about how you can use LinkedIn to present yourself to the world and to build a strong network. And because it's a smaller group, I think that it will be really a nice chance to have a conversation. So we'll welcome your questions and your thoughts, and we'll be doing some polls along the way. And so, as Gracie mentioned, the link to this deck is in the meeting invitation. And I'll be sharing a little one-page checklist at the end also of kind of pro tips for LinkedIn. So next slide. So what are we going to talk about today? We'll talk about why LinkedIn is different from other social media apps, how you can improve your LinkedIn profile in strategic ways, how to build a professional network online, and tips for looking for jobs on LinkedIn. Next slide. So here's a fun way to think about how LinkedIn is different from other social media. So just raise your hand or, mentally say yes if you recognize all these icons and how you use them. But let's talk about donuts, okay? If you're on Facebook, you're going to say, I like donuts, and find your tribe who also likes donuts. If you're on Snapchat, you're going to have people watch you eat a donut. If you're on Instagram, of course, you're going to take a great photo of an amazing donut with sprinkles. On Pinterest, you will share your best donut recipe. On Spotify, you're going to find a playlist that says something about donuts. And then on WhatsApp, anybody want a donut? Let's make a plan. So each of these apps has their role to play, but LinkedIn is different. And next slide. So what are you going to do with donuts on LinkedIn? Back, yeah. So LinkedIn is a professional social media platform. It is the largest professional community online in the world. There are 1 billion people using LinkedIn, and hopefully it's some or all of you. I'm going to do a poll now, and what you can do is just put into the chat a yes or a no, or a Y or an N. Do you have a profile on LinkedIn already? And I'm seeing yes, yes, yes. You're several of the 1 billion who do. Just before I left LinkedIn in January, we achieved that milestone. So I have a t-shirt that says 1 billion. So great, you're all on LinkedIn, I think, or at least most of you. Okay, it's on LinkedIn, you can tell the world about yourself, your company, you can find a job, you can show your skills and experience, and you can give and get personal references. And if you're on LinkedIn, you know all of that. But what we're going to talk about today is how you can go even deeper and be like a pro user of LinkedIn. All right, next slide. So you can build a network of professional friends and allies and mentors on LinkedIn. There are 30 million employers, organizations on LinkedIn who are looking for talented people to hire, and around 20 million job openings on LinkedIn at any given time. Millions of recruiters use LinkedIn to find the right person to fill their jobs. Next slide. So it's not surprising probably, but what we know is that 9 out of 10 employers use LinkedIn during the hiring process. So it's important that you have a way to show up in the best possible mode on LinkedIn. Okay, so next slide. Let's take a minute to define some of the words that I'm going to use in the next half hour. When I say workforce, I mean people who are working or who are available to work, like they're looking for a job in a certain place in a geography. When I say connections, I mean that very specifically to mean your official contacts on LinkedIn. You can add connections by inviting people, and you can also accept invitations from other people to connect. And that's how you build out your network, which is the third word. So that is your community of contacts on LinkedIn. And it's a community where you help each other to build your careers. Then when I mention referral a little later on, that means when someone is recommended for a job by someone in his or her LinkedIn network. It's an easy process on LinkedIn to ask somebody to provide a reference for you that confirms you are a good candidate for that job. And it's easy for you also to provide references for other people. Next slide. So let's just quickly review some tips on how to create a really strong professional presence on the LinkedIn platform. Most of you already set up your account. We'll talk about how it's a profile on LinkedIn is different from a resume. We'll talk about what makes a really great photo and a few tips on how to edit your profile. Next slide. All right, so most of you already have a LinkedIn profile. If you don't, or you want to help a friend set one up, what you need to do is go to linkedin.com. And it's easiest if you set up your account using your computer instead of your phone, but then you can use the app on both devices. All right, next slide. All right, so probably you already understand this at some level, but a LinkedIn profile is quite different than the resume that you might send to a particular employer. You know, at the highest level, it is one view, one set of information that you're giving to everybody. So you don't have the chance, like a resume, to customize it for each type of job or for each company that you're going to pursue for an opportunity. But the good thing is that the platform, when you have your profile up there, one of the things it will do is give you visibility into a whole range of jobs and employers that weren't on your radar before, because it will go out and find things that might be of interest to you and serve those up to you. Secondly, on the LinkedIn profile, you can give a lot more detail about your skills, about your projects, about your certifications, about your awards, just about yourself. And it's interactive. So other professionals, other employers can start a conversation with you. You can start a conversation with them. You can share ideas, best practices. You can learn on LinkedIn Learning. There are tens of thousands of courses on LinkedIn Learning that you can take part in. And if you are a premium member, then they're free. Some are unlocked free forever, but some are part of the premium subscription. That premium subscription also enables you to have more access to people's InMail. So not an advertisement, but just nice for you to know. Okay, and then the other thing that's different about LinkedIn profile and how you tell yourself the world about, present yourself to the world there versus a resume is it's very easy on the platform to ask people to give you an endorsement, to confirm that you have the skills that you have, to give you a referral. It just makes those awkward transactions smooth to some extent. But there's one important thing to remember. And that is the spirit on LinkedIn is generosity and collaboration. And so do look for opportunities to give referrals and endorsements and recommendations to other people in your network too, not just ask for help for yourself. And I'm sure that's already in your heart and your mind, but just a reminder that being a giver as well as a taker on LinkedIn will serve you really well. Okay, next slide. So let's take a look at this photo and just think to yourself, why or why not is that appealing to you? What do you like about it? Our data analysts have, kind of looked at the trends. And one thing we can tell you is that it's very helpful to have a photo, that people with LinkedIn profiles that have a photo get a lot much more traction than people that just have the little graphic there. And you can kind of think of why. It just, the image kind of lets you in and makes you feel more connected and kind of understand the person in a way that you don't get just from the text on the profile. But what makes a good photo? It should be a simple background. There's no pattern, there's no distraction, so you're really looking at the face, not the background. You want to dress looking like you have the role that you want to pursue, right? So dress professionally and with clothes that make you look like a great candidate. And your face should take up most of the screen, most of the frame. Some people put interesting photos in of themselves full, standing in the full figure in a really cool background, but those don't tend to be as effective. It's really better to just put your face out there. And then a pro tip that maybe some of you have already discovered, behind that photo, there's a space for a banner photo that goes across your whole profile at the very top. And that's a fun place or an interesting place to attract a little attention or to have an image that reinforces or describes who you are. So for example, if you went to my LinkedIn profile, what you would see is my background is a photo that I took when I was hiking with my husband in in Yosemite, and there's some mountains, and it's just reinforces the fact that I'm involved in the environment. So next slide. All right, now, all of you have a profile. It's probably working pretty well for you, but let's talk about how you can take it from good to great. And so these are my ideas. If you like them, you can use them. So the way that you edit is you go in and you click, at the top of your profile, add a new profile section. And what you want to make sure you do is include your location, include your industry, include as much of your education as you want to share, your work experience, and that includes volunteer experiences or unpaid experiences and your skills. And people don't know this, but it's really important to put skills in there because those are keywords that all of the artificial intelligence searches on now. So please make sure that you include all the key skills that are part of your superpowers. And then another thing that really can help set you apart that many people don't do is upload evidence, concrete examples of your work, of your skills. And what you can upload are videos. If you're a musician, upload a video from one of your concerts. If you're an artist, upload photos of your most beautiful work. If you are a writer, you can upload a white paper or a technical document or anything that you're able to share, a PowerPoint deck. And that tends to be really helpful for the employers, and it's just reinforces that you have credibility and you can add value. All right, so now poll number 2 in the chat. Can you think of one thing you could upload to your profile as an example of your work? And maybe you've already done that. So if you have, you can tell us about that. So just take a minute, one thing that you think, a photo. You don't have to actually upload it, just note what it might be. A research paper I published, that is awesome. And that just gives more visibility to that paper too. Like what I've uploaded is a PowerPoint presentation when I was actually doing some work with the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government. It was a really meaningful project and interesting. Rana has a newsletter and publish monthly, and she posts regularly. So that's all the other things you can do on LinkedIn in addition to your LinkedIn profile. And if you're attending a conference, yeah, you can upload, a screenshot of the conference agenda if you're, if that's an area of interest for you, and if you're speaking. So you get the idea. And over time, you'll be able to think of things that you might like to add. Okay. So next slide. The other thing that people maybe are not aware of is how important your headline is. It's at the very top of your profile, and it's only, one line. And but it also, with artificial intelligence, that's one of the key ways people find you. So it's very important. It is the first and maybe sometimes the only thing that someone or some, robot will see. So it should clearly signal who you are, what you do. It should reflect your personal professional brand. And does it include the key words or information that a recruiter would find important? So let's just take a look at some of the examples here, and you can kind of in your mind rate, is this a good headline or not? So the first one's kind of clever. Design thinking meets social impact meets business strategy. So what she's doing there is she's basically saying, social impact is my purpose, and I use design thinking and business strategy to help organizations achieve that social impact. A little bit more straightforward one is head of client strategy and business development at Beyond. Okay, so you get the idea. It seems like a simple thing, but the impacts in terms of algorithms can be powerful. Next slide. All right, here's where most people tend to revise their profile once they've had it up for a while, because they realize there's a lot of power and possibility in this section. It's this summary section. It's like the about Carly O'Connell or Sharif Jamal section. It's not a resume. It is not a bullet point list of your jobs, dates and jobs. And a lot of people, that's what they put in here, but they're missing a big opportunity, because you're going to have all of that information in a later section called work experience. No, This section is for you to describe who you are, and you can be creative and you can add personal elements that make people feel a connection to you. It's the chance to tell the world about you, what you care about, what you enjoy, it's kind of a summary of your experiences and skills and your superpowers. And then you can mention your future goals and how members can contact you. But let's take a look at this example, and I'm just going to give you a minute to kind of scan it quickly and ask yourself, did she or he do a good job in this section? It's additional information that you don't find down below in, the work experience piece. So just take a moment and have a look, and then I'll point out a few things. Okay, so here's what I think she does well. Right in the first sentence, she tells them, I'm a dynamic speaker. I practice social impact, and I care about diversity and inclusion. So she gets out some skills and powers that she has. Then she adds some personal details. In the middle of the second paragraph, she talks about how she has been influenced by her mother and father and how that has kind of guided her career and her work. And then in the third paragraph, she's asking people, hey, send me recommendations on a future challenge that I could put to myself to grow physically, mentally, emotionally. Now, what does that do? She says, I welcome recommendations. First of all, you think that's kind of a cool person. She's, like a continuous learner. She wants to grow, and it gives them an opportunity to actually send her a message, right? So it starts that conversation. Now, a pro tip here, make sure that your summary is at least 40 words, because that's the minimum requirement in order for it to be found in search results when other members are using LinkedIn and searching. Okay, next slide. All right. Once you're happy with your profile now, you're ready to go out and reach out very strategically to the 1 billion people in the community on LinkedIn to network. So let's talk about how to discover existing connections you have and make them formal connections on LinkedIn. And then let's talk about how you can strategically discover new connections that can be helpful for you. Next slide. And here's just a key statistic to keep in mind. And I think we know this, but it's good to be reminded. About half, 50% of hires result from a personal connection. And that can be an online connection at LinkedIn as much as it can be a family or friend connection offline. Next slide. Okay. So when we think about networks, I want you to picture your network, and I want you to picture your first degree network. Who is your first degree? Well, those are people you have a connection with on LinkedIn because you've connected because you know them through your work or your studies or your volunteering. So it is a first degree. They know something about you in real time, and you know something about them. That's your first degree connections. But you don't have to stop there in your networking. So next slide. What LinkedIn does is automatically give you a little tether, a little link to your first degree connections. So because you know someone in the first degree, you can then get to know one of their first degree connections in a pretty smooth way on LinkedIn. And that's the power. The first degree connections can connect you to what will be your second degree connections. And interestingly enough, when LinkedIn did a formal scientific study of hiring happening on LinkedIn's marketplace, do you know what they found? It wasn't the first degree connections that were most important when people got the job. It was the second degree connections. So don't ignore this. Even though you don't know them yet personally or not well, you build that relationship through the networking, and they can be very helpful just as you can be helpful as a second-degree connection to other people. Okay, the next slide. And then the network and the spider web just continues to grow. There are third degrees, and so you can be connected or reach out in that way through your relationships. Okay, next slide. So who cares? Why is this important to you? Why is this web of people helpful? Well, as I said, you can reach out to secondary connections, people who might be an employer or a mentor, and you can mention that you share a first degree connection. So and you probably have all already done this. It's just a good reminder. So here's an example of an easy note to send. Hi, Dan. I found your profile through our mutual friend connection, Rob. I'm currently exploring career paths in tech, and I admire what you've been doing. I would love to join your network. So what you want to do is tell them who you are, who you both know, and why you're reaching out. You can do it a different way too. You can find that second degree connection and then write to your first degree connection and say, hey, could you please send an email introducing me? So there's various ways to actually make it happen. Next slide. So in addition to like your first degree and people you have relationships with, you can find your existing connections, just be reminded of them and take them from people to being formal connections. When you click at the top of your profile bar on My Network, it will offer up people you may know. And I'm sure you've all seen this. And so you can decide, do I want to connect with them or not? And then it's very easy to do that if you want to. Okay, next slide. All right, and then searching for new connections, kind of going out more on a limb. But you want to be sure when you reach out that you add that personal note when you ask for the connection, who you are, why there's a link, and what you would appreciate from them. And you know that you can filter this to be very strategic, right? So you can filter by their name, or you can filter by the company and find out who's working at that company. And is there someone there that knows one of my first degree connections, and can I work my way in that way? You can search by location and just say, hey, I've just arrived in Ithaca or Chicago or Pittsburgh, and I want to know who's there in my location. And you can filter that further by the keyword. Maybe you want to meet everybody in journalism or in art or in whatever music, whatever field you're in. And so you can work with a number of those filters to get very sophisticated and efficient in the way you're reaching out. Next slide. Okay, so that's the new connections. And again, when you reach out to them, you always want to add a personal message. And you've probably gotten those messages too. And you're much more likely to respond positively when they explain. All right, now, so another quick poll. What keyword would you use to help you identify some helpful new collections? Maybe you've already put in the filter for geography, and now what is the keyword that you would use to start to build your network? So anyone want to jump in and chat about that? Just place your answer in the chat. City, okay. I would put in environment or sustainability, and position, right? Human rights, awesome, Gracie. Research. And then it's really kind of fun if you have the time. Jonathan, media leadership. Yes, awesome. And then if you have the time, you're going to meet some interesting people that are going to be important and valuable in a lot of different ways. Okay, so let's keep going. Next slide. All right, so it's a huge potential community out there, and you don't have a lot of time or energy. And so how do you expand your network strategically? Who should you reach out to? Well, people you have something in common with, even if you don't have a direct thought that they're going to help me get a job, or they're going to do something for me. It's really wonderful to have a community on LinkedIn of people that you share a common passion with. whether that's human rights or refugee and immigration empowerment or environmental sustainability. Even if you don't have any particular specific thing you need or want to share, there will be in the future both of those things. So people who have a job, they're working at a company that is interesting to you, reach out and find out more. And people who might be able to connect you to someone. So here's what you say: who you are, how you came across their profile, how you found them, and how they can help you. Next line or next slide. All right, and there are lots of different things you can do once you're connected. You can message them, you can ask for an informational interview, request a referral or recommendation, or give some. Here's an interesting one that I've used quite a bit over the last. Find a mentor, someone, it doesn't even have to be career advice. Find some thought leaders in your field and connect, officially with them and just have that conversation about best practices. How is the field evolving? What can we learn? How are we reacting to these external events? Anyway, so it's a way to add value and engage. Next slide. Okay, so that's just another reminder that LinkedIn members are 9 times more likely to get hired based on our statistics when they're referred. Next slide. Oh, and we're going to skip this one for sake of time. Okay. So, I mentioned informational interviews, and I know you guys, have probably done them or have, from one side or the other, you've been providing informational, value, or you've been getting information. But, it's important to know that it's not a job interview, it's an informational interview. It's just a conversation to build your knowledge, your skills, to build your relationships. It's an efficient way to learn about an industry or a company, to get advice, start to build your brand. And so here's an example of the words people use sometimes. So, hi, Erin, I'm currently exploring careers in communications. And I really admire your experience and accomplishments. I'd appreciate the opportunity to hear about your career journey. Would you be available for a 20-minute chat over the phone? And I get a lot of these requests because so many young people want their career to include protecting the planet and taking care of climate change problems. And so I do a number of, phone calls, but also sometimes just because there's a pretty big demand at this moment, I also kind of can do an email or a LinkedIn chat conversation. And those are nice in another way because that captures the information that's being shared in text. And so you don't lose it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a chat over the phone. You can have this informational interview as a series of exchanges on LinkedIn messaging or texting or, whatever. Okay, next slide. All right, now let's talk about referrals and then we'll talk about recommendations. So remember, a referral is when you have found a specific job on LinkedIn. You would love to have this job. And you've looked at the company, you've looked at the people who work at that company, and you see that someone who's one of your first or second degree connections works at that company. So what you can do is write to them and say, hi, Seth, I hope you're doing well. I saw that this company is hiring a communication specialist. I am interested in applying. This role seems like a great fit for me because it needs somebody who's a self-starter, who can operate in complex environments. Would you be willing to share with me information about the position, the team, the company culture, and what they're looking for in the candidates when they're doing the interviews? Let me know if you have any questions, and then you can ask them to actually make a formal referral. But what did this person do well? What did Kate do well in this letter? She said, this is the job I'm interested in. I would be a good candidate, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I'm a self-starter, I can deal with complexity. And then she's very specific about what she's asking them. And then that's just so helpful for the other person. Okay, next slide. Now that's a little different than a recommendation, right? You can also ask for recommendations, and you should. And those are a part of your LinkedIn profile. That's sort of a permanent part there. You ask people to upload it through the platform. And it's not for any specific job. It's just a general statement that you are a great person to work with or to work for because you have these skills and you are reliable and very impactful, and what you should do is draft a few bullet points for the person that you're going to ask the recommendation from, because you want to make it as easy as possible for them to just click and give you, the write-up. And you can be sure then that they will highlight the things that are most important for you to tell the world. So how do you get a recommendation? You basically find a connection on LinkedIn that you would, that could confirm that you have these great qualities. It should be someone you worked for, a manager, someone you worked with, even if it wasn't on your team, someone that knows you, knows your work, people that have mentored you or advised you. So there has to be that level of connection. And then what you do, you go to that person's LinkedIn profile, and up at the top, you'll see a button for more. And then if you click that, there's a button that says request a recommendation. And then that's how you start that process. That's it. Next slide. Okay. You can find a mentor, as we mentioned, for career advice. They no longer have the Career Advice Hub, but they do have, all these other ways that you can find and connect people and specifically ask them to mentor you. Next slide. All right. So, we've sort of talked about all the different things you can do on LinkedIn on your profile, and then communicating with your connections. You can like and share things. Hey, Rana and other people have newsletters. Subscribe to newsletters. People post, and they post articles, and they post just short form posts. You can do those things too. When you feel more confident and you want to become seen as a thought leader on LinkedIn, when you become confident in how to use the platform, you can have your own posts and your own articles and your own newsletter and all of these different ways, and upload all your videos, because I know that each of you has a lot of knowledge and experience that will be useful and helpful to other people. And that's the spirit of LinkedIn. Let's share that and exchange ideas and knowledge and best thoughts so that we can all move farther, faster, better. I'll put a plug in here for joining groups, and I think John may want to talk about groups on LinkedIn at the end of this, and then the testimonials. Next slide. Okay, we're going to wrap up here with just a few words about how to search for, and find and apply for jobs on LinkedIn. How do you indicate what your career interests are? How do you set a search alert so it'll be coming in to you from LinkedIn, job opportunities? How do you review jobs you might be interested in, follow companies, etc.? So next slide. Okay, and just again, a reminder, every week, 25 million people are looking for and sometimes finding jobs and getting jobs on LinkedIn. So it's a very active marketplace. Next slide. Okay, so one of the important things for you to do is signal that you are open to work. So I don't know if you don't know how to do that, you go in the jobs section, and you have a chance. Oh, no, sorry, in your editing your profile section, and there's an opportunity for you to click a button that says open to work. And when you do that, like magic, on the photo on your LinkedIn profile top, the header, it'll have like a half a halo that says green, and it says open to work. There's another halo that you can turn on if you are hiring to find other people. And I believe that one's purple and it says I'm hiring. So it's just a way LinkedIn makes it easier for you to signal, hey, I'm here and you might want to hire me, or hey, I have a job you might be interested in. So, do go and put that open to work on. And when you do that, and then go in and look for jobs, you can set up a search alert. And one other thing I want to flag for you that's also, I haven't updated this slide, but when you go up to the top of your navigation, bar with your profile, there's a button that says jobs. And when you click that, right below that now, there's a new section called jobs collections. And these are pre-calculated, pre-programmed job queries that you can tap into that are broadly interesting to different members of the LinkedIn community. So there's one for healthcare jobs, there's one for green jobs and climate tech jobs. But some of the ones that might be interesting for you, there's one for media jobs, higher ed jobs, social impact jobs. Those are some of the other jobs collections. So check it out. It might be helpful for you. Next slide. All right, so then when you're, creating your own job searches, you can see here the list of things you can filter for: keyword, title, company, location, even experience level. Are they looking for someone at your experience level? And then, of course, it's nice if it's the date posted. It's like the most, recent job postings come up first. So you can do those filters. And then when you do, and you have a job search and you say, go, and it brings up some jobs. Then what you can do, there's another button that's going to appear and it says create search alert, or sorry, job alert. And then that automatically sets up a process. So it'll periodically do that job search and refresh it for you and then send you the latest. And I'll tell you a funny story. My daughter just graduated and she's a veterinarian, and those jobs, she wants to work with species preservation and wildlife conservation, not in a pet clinic. So her job aim is very tough because there's very few jobs available. So I put a job alert search for me as well, so that if I, so she's got this alert going, but I do too, so I can see. And since, so I have like 3 times a week, LinkedIn is telling me there are zoo jobs available and, animal research jobs available. And it's kind of fun to see that happening, but it works. And it's really encouraging when those things are incoming to you. Okay, next slide. And again, LinkedIn, well, we talked about the search alerts, sorry, but that's how you do it. And so then it also, tells you, hey, these are jobs you might be interested in. And the artificial intelligence is not perfect. Sometimes you're going to think, why did this one appear? Like in the zoo job alerts, sometimes I get alerts for a software called Zoo, and they want programmers for that. So clearly, it's not perfect, but again, it's a filter and this will be incoming to you. It'll say, you may be interested in these jobs. Okay, so make sure your LinkedIn profile has all the right info about your experience, your skills, and your location so that these will appear for you. Okay, next couple slides. We're almost done. You can follow companies. Are there companies you admire? If you follow them, then you'll get like upcoming news, like what's happening in their company. And, that's interesting. You can go to the Life tab. So if you go to Starbucks, underneath there's a tab for life. And you can see that's highlighted here in the graphic. And if you go there, it's like, what's life like when you work at Starbucks? What's the culture? And they have like a feed to tell talent, job seekers, what is life like? And they'll share videos, photos, news announcements and stuff. So that's a nice way, kind of an effortless way to stay up to date on what's happening with organizations that you care about. Next slide. Okay. And then it's easy to apply for jobs that you find. And I just highlight here, you can use your phone. You don't even have to be at your computer. Next slide. Okay, a couple things to wrap up with. You can also research schools. You can learn about alumni from schools and from companies. You can join a group or groups, and you can set your privacy settings. So let's talk about those briefly. Next slide. Okay, so it's kind of fun to stay in touch with your school, or a school that you're applying to, right? And there's a ton of information in there. So go through the tabs, home, about, life, jobs, alumni. And one kind of cool thing, so for example, San Jose State University, if I'm an alumni there, or I'm talking to their alumni, or want to talk to their alumni, you can go to the alumni tab, and then it will show you kind of what are the careers that their alumni are launching into, and kind of what's that path. Okay, next slide. So we talked about that. Where do they live? Where do they work? What do they do? What did they study? You can, quite a bit of research you can glean from that. That might be helpful. Next slide. And then groups. And then I talked about two different types of reasons why you might want to join a group. One is you just share a passion with those people, and you want to have conversation and be getting updated on best practices and certifications and whatever. Or it might be your specific professional interest or avocation in your industry. And then there are groups for alumni from school. I left LinkedIn a month ago to do some other things with nonprofit. And immediately LinkedIn invited me to join the LinkedIn Company Alumni Group. And it was founded by LinkedIn's founder, Reid Hoffman. And it's very cool because I'm now connected with all these people who used to work at LinkedIn. And so you have that bond. And it's really powerful. Next slide. All right. And then just a reminder about privacy settings. And I'm sure, especially for this group, this is important for you to understand how the privacy works. You can change the language you use on LinkedIn. As of 2 years ago, we had more growth in members joining LinkedIn outside of the US than in the US. And right now, LinkedIn has more members total outside the US than in the US. And there is a lot of conversation happening in other languages. So be sure to, choose what you want there. You can change your password and be careful about that. And you can control notifications, preferences. There's a lot of other things you can do, so be sure and look into that. All right, so that's it. I think that's my last slide. Sorry for talking at you so long, but I hope this was helpful. And I guess the one other thing I want to say is, John and Gracie, I think you have one more PDF. It's a one-pager that I will leave with all of you. It's a checklist. It's just a reminder. All the information is also in the deck, but this is a one-page checklist with links that are live that will take you to different things and things I didn't even talk about. There's actually a resume builder. There's a way for you to do video practicing of interviews. There's a lot of other newer stuff that the links are in this document that I shared with John that I haven't updated in my deck, but I wanted you to be aware of. So I am done talking, and I hope some of this wasn't too basic, and I hope it was useful for you. I so admire what each of you are doing and your journey, and wish you all the best. Okay.
Thank you so much, Peggy. I really quickly, while we're talking about the checklist, I just want to share my screen again and show you all this checklist. We're having a little bit of trouble putting it in the chat. So
You can email it maybe afterward then.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. I just want to show you all a little preview, but we will share it to all of the attendees today, and maybe we can get it up on the Onwards website as well. But it's full of great steps you can take to use LinkedIn to its full potential.
You guys are going to be power users now. Just go for it.
All right. I think there's a lot we can all take away from that presentation, whether you're brand new to LinkedIn or you've been using it for years. Like, I honestly did not know you could upload documents and examples of your work to your profile. So that's something that I will definitely take away from this. I also see that Danson said in the chat that he's a literature professor, but now interested in human rights work and never gets the human rights alerts. And now he knows why. So I hope all of you can take more out of that. And I do want to give you all the opportunity. If you have questions specifically for Peggy right now, feel free to put them in the Q&A or chat. We'll also have another opportunity for questions at the end if you want some time to think about questions you might have. Peggy, I want to ask one question right now, though, which is
Yeah.
if there's one edit or change or feature on the profile that people can make after listening to this presentation, what would you suggest as like the very first thing to tackle?
Can I say two?
Absolutely.
And I'm saying because now so much of the first screen is artificial intelligence, that I would say make sure your headline has the important keywords and that you do go in and input a set of skills. Because more and more of the hiring is skills-based hiring. So they want to screen for people who have particular skills. So I would say the headline and the skills, and then everything else just helps you stand out or helps people feel more excited, about what you do. All those other things I talked about.
Absolutely. And I see one more question from.
Oh, so should we accept requests to join people's networks from everyone who sends one, or should we be selective? Is there a downside to having connections who really don't share much with you? I'll talk about the pros and cons. The pro is that if you have information, a message that you want to communicate to the world, the more connections that you have, the more viral that message can go. And so that's probably the biggest upside. And then if you allow someone to connect, then they can send you messages and in your, LinkedIn inbox. And so if you're completely open to accepting that, then you're going to have, the biggest variety of inputs from a lot of people who are not on your radar. The downside is then you can get some, messages you don't want, either because it's kind of spamish or could be inappropriate. I will say that the level of conversation and even on LinkedIn when people post, but also when they put comments and when they message each other, the level of civility and appropriateness is pretty high compared to the other social media platforms. So LinkedIn has, for the last 8 years, gotten #1 award for trust, safety, trying to think of the right word. But anyway, it's the most trusted social media platform. But that said, I mean, I do recognize Rana's comment. I don't accept random people. I received a few spam. So I think in my prior role, my main goal was to get the message out about climate change and solutions to as many people as I could. So I erred on the side of, I'm just going to open it up and, let's connect and let's share, right? But I do get spam or advertising or whatever you call it. And I just delete, but yeah. So I think, that would be interesting. I'm curious what other people think. You can be as selective as you want. Any other questions? Okay.
If there's nothing for now, we'll move on to Rana. And as I said, we'll have another opportunity for questions at the end of today's session. So be thinking about any other thoughts you have about LinkedIn. So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Rana Mustafa. Rana is a multilingual food scientist, leadership coach, positive intelligence coach, and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in academia, food innovation, project management, and product commercialization. In her role as the founder of the Grow Strong Coaching and a research facilitator at the University of Saskatchewan, Dr. Mustafa assists researchers with grant writing, business development, and establishing industry partnerships to advance their research initiatives and foster innovation. As a survivor of war and breast cancer, she brings a unique perspective to her work. She supports professionals grappling with life's challenges, helping them cultivate resilient mindsets, reinvent themselves, and turn adversity into opportunities. And Rana has a presentation all up and ready to go, so I'll turn it over to you. Rana,
Found
you're
it. Found it. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to this presentation. Before I start, for participants, if you wonder why I was invited, not one of the so many alumni from Scholar Rescue Fund or the Institute of International Educations or others, if you wonder why, well, because I built a professional network. And one of my best tools to build that network was LinkedIn. So thank you for inviting me. I wanted to share my journey as someone who came to Canada a few years ago, 8 years ago, in fact, um, after the Syrian Civil War. I was supported by the Institute of International Education, Scholar Rescue Fund, and Scholar at Risk Network. So this is something we went through. Yes, so I came from Syria. This is to my left, my beautiful apartment before the war, and this is what is left. In a few months, of course, I lived in that area for 3 years within the war zone, and I was a university professor. I went to my daily teaching and research activities while under that threat. And unfortunately, in one day, we were forced to leave, and this is what happened to our home. I came to Canada. I started my new life here. I was super, happy to start this new life. It doesn't mean that it was easy, and I will talk about it later. But however, a few years later, I found the job that I want. I felt that I started on the path of being or doing what I want. And suddenly, in 3 weeks, I turned from that person with that long hair to the other person, breast cancer. However, and I will talk about it later, the war or breast cancer didn't stop me from pursuing my life purpose. And during my breast cancer treatment, I started another entrepreneurial journey in Canada, and I started a professional leadership coaching. And I was awarded because I was supporting women with breast cancer. If you look at my photo here, my hair looks so beautiful, got a lot of comments on it, but it's a wig. It's not a hair, similar to this. And currently, I am also a finalist in a local award, Immigrant Woman Resilient Award. Why I am saying that? Why sharing these stories? Of course, I faced so many challenges before. Yes, it was the war. Everything was so hard. 5 years during the war, threat for life and career was very difficult. But when I came to Canada, I thought all my problems will go away. However, I used to speak, of course, Arabic because I came from Syria, and French, in fact, because I did my studies, master's and a PhD in France. English was not the language that I speak. So I came with really minimum language skills, but I started working right away. So I didn't have the time to have just English classes. I was working and learning at the same time. It was really, I needed a lot of cultural adjustment because at first I thought it's like European style, but I came to a place where it's very, very cold and the culture is different. I experienced social isolation and loss of support because it's very cold and no one goes outside. I was a university professor in Syria, while in Canada I was working in research, doing my research in my own lab. So it was really very different. People when people meet me and ask me, where are you from, and I say I'm from Syria, right away there are some prejudices about, oh, you guys are fighting and why is that, etc. Employment and recognition for my credential. I was underemployed for a few time. I experienced financial challenges, immigration issues, because I came here with a work permit and then I applied for a refugee status and I wanted to do something else. I cannot go back to Syria. And then I had that health challenges. So all of these, it's so hard to manage. However, I believe that the one key that helped me keep on going, it was resilience. And resilience made me able to adapt to change, overcomes rejection or setback, um, pursue pursue learning opportunities all the time. And of course, go out of my comfort zone. To build those resilient career path, we need determination. I was determined on what I want to do in Canada. I don't want to end up by a cheap paper or any other job or driving a cab or something like so many people do. I wanted to use my skills for the place that I now consider my new home. And I want to give back to my community where I left, who I left, and they need my expertise. Having that growth mindset and building strong relationship and overcoming limited beliefs. Yes, because when I heard people, the prejudices or opinions, etc., sometimes they are related to my own limited beliefs. So I wanted to work on them. It's not about other people. And I understood from the first day that I can never do things on my own and alone. I need to build that relationship and support system around me, because this is what will help me. As I mentioned, it's all about how we change our mindset, and I worked so hard on it to be able to change my way of thinking in this new culture, learn about the new job opportunities, new about the culture, everything. So when I change my thoughts, my action will be different. And this is something that I use now in coaching, but it's a very well-known coaching model, of course. For sure, when we came to a new country, new place, we will feel negative emotions. And I use the hot stove as a metaphor to explain that. Um, are negative emotions bad? Of course not. But it's like when you put your hand on the stove. The stove is useful, heat is useful. But if you put it on the stove for more than a few seconds, it will burn you. So once you recognize it, you need to step away and think what we can do to change the situation. So we move from that self-sabotage to self-mastery. All of these things I was applying to myself, and now they are better because I did that coaching training. So my own experience and moving from a university professor position to Canada and learning, and now I am in a very good position. My health is so good. I have a wonderful job at the College of Engineering. My journey, the conclusion of my journey, I can say there are 5 steps to turn struggles into opportunities. Firstly, cultivate emotional intelligence, self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and social management. And then Plan your career transition. So I came as a university professor. I was a visiting professor at the University of Saskatchewan. My dream was I will find a faculty position and continue doing this job forever, like what I did in Syria for 10 years. Didn't work because here the career opportunities or the job market is different. The requirement is different. So I planned for my career transition in a job that matches my own skills and ambition and goals. Network strategically. Yes, I heard it before. We need to network, but we need to network strategically. Look at people who are positive around you, can help you, move you towards your goals. And we need, as a new immigrants or refugees or displaced people, we need to go a little bit outside of our comfort zone and just talk to people, because sometimes, and this is what experience, that people are concerned and they don't know our culture. When I came to Canada and the first few months, every time people talk about, oh, the Syrian war, what I wanted to do is to attach Syria in their mind to another thing, which is music and culture. So the city where I'm living now, in this city, I started participating in multicultural events. My son used to play music. I used to sing and talk about the culture that we have in Syria, the rich, we have so many beautiful things to talk about them compared to only the war. Of course, develop resilience. Resilience is not something that we can just have naturally. We need to have that self-awareness, uh, know what we do, give ourselves credit, and have always that growth mindset, and continue learning about what went wrong and how we can improve it, and accept what happens, and then build our personal brand. And this is something very close to my heart, and I believe that it's very useful, but I will talk about it a little bit later. Um, those are steps that to me help me so much to keep on going, even though I face so all these challenges. Of course, when we come to a new country, maybe job opportunities will not be like what we had in the past. There is another venue here, which is entrepreneurship. So when I had my breast cancer and I was doing this treatment and stay 1 day a week at the hospital, my brain couldn't handle it because I want to give, I want to be active. And I said to myself, even though I will live for a few years, or let's say 1 year, I want to make the best of it. I want to share my story so people are inspired and happy. So what can I do for that? I thought, well, you know what? I want to be like that university professor in Syria who used to have so many people coming to, and like I used to have so many students come to ask me questions about their life, about their career, not only about the class they learn from me. How can I do that? So I said, well, I want to do coaching, professional coaching, leadership coaching. So on my hospital bed, and thanks to COVID, everything is online. So I did all that training. I was able to talk to so many people. I was not shy to be online talking to people, turning on my camera with no hair. I was not shy because this is this is my journey. So here finding the things that you like and that people may pay you for it. And you can start a journey of entrepreneurship that you never thought of. And this is another career opportunity in the new home. I cannot talk enough about mentorship and coaching. Mentorship and coaching are two powerful tools for anyone who wants to transition or wants to navigate the challenges. Talking to people, expanding our network, telling people that we have a goal. I remember before the war, people were, when they meet with me, they hear my story, how what I did in Syria. I was awarded during the war. I was awarded for excellence because I continued teaching, even though everything around us was in a very bad situation, I can say, absolutely. So when people in Canada hear my story, they say, "Oh, you are very resilient. You are very strong." So to me, it became kind of my identity. And I wanted, because everyone knows me about with this image. So when I had my cancer, I wanted to keep this identity. I wanted to keep on going and fight to have my place and continue on the path for my life purpose. So mentors are so useful to help us go towards our goals. Coaching, of course, there is difference between coaching and mentorship, but both are very, very useful. I have an exercise um, I developed. It's called the personal advisory board. And in that exercise, I ask people to imagine they are the head of a company. So their life is their company. So how many people on that advisory board do you have? We try to build it. And now I have this question for you. I want to ask you this question. If you think of yourself, your life as a company, and this company, in this company, you are the CEO. Of course, you need an advisory board. Imagine now that you are building this advisory board. Do you think that you have now in your life a few people that you can invite to be in that advisory board? And if yes, please write in the chat. How many people comes to mind now that you can assign in that advisory board as a coach, mentor, supporter, whatever? How many people? Please write in the chat if you have a number. No one has okay, 858. Wow, this is so good. And anyone from the participants would like to participate and write numbers? How many people in your life now you think you can call to invite to that personal advisory board? Okay, so nice. So this is a great, because we can rely on those people to help us build this company. That is imagination. We are imagining that this is our life. So I talked about personal branding. And the reason why I talked about personal branding, and it's one of the programs that I offer now as a coach. Because imagine you are going to a new island and you stop the first person in this new island, someone will come to you and say, "Hey, wanna come to my place?" Do you go to that place? If you are a very adventurous person, maybe you will go. But if you are not, maybe you will be hesitant. You will say like, who's that person? Maybe he's a scam or they are something else, right? When we come personally, when I came myself to where I am in Canada now, I didn't know anyone in the city. I just came because I got the work permit and the job offer at the University of Saskatchewan. I only knew online the professor who I will be working with. That's it. But so when I came, I thought it's like in Syria. I know everyone at the university, they know me, etc. I came the first few months, like I don't know anyone, no one knows me. When I say hi, no one will respond because like, who's this person, right? This is why personal branding is very, very important. Why? Because even when I was in Syria, I had built online presence on LinkedIn. And as a university professor and researcher, I know that Google Scholar, ResearchGate is another platform where I have all my publications, I have my work, etc. And to your knowledge, the professor who accepted me to work with her at the University of Saskatchewan, I was communicating with her to get the job offer. And she said, okay, I will look at your application and reply to you. I was impatient. I sent her, after a week, I sent her a note. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. You know, my situation in Syria is not ideal. So if you compare me to anyone in Canada, my um, uh, publication, uh, my publications are not that, high like any other person. And she wrote to me, she wrote back, she said, Rana, I looked at your LinkedIn and ResearchGate profiles, and I noticed that you are always um, doing something new and building on what you are doing. So you are fine. And she gave me the job offer. This is an example that I say to everyone that we need to build a personal brand. Now, what is a personal brand? I, as a person, do I need a personal brand? Well, unfortunately, nowadays in that AI world, yes, we need that. Personal branding to me, it's how we show up to the world and tell them who we are and what we can do for them. And there are different steps and different way to build that personal brand. In my program, I identified, and through my experience as well, 8 steps. It starts by defining your life vision and value proposition. What's my life vision? I knew that I love to be a university professor. That means I want to be always with people who needs support to move forward on their career path. What's the value proposition? Why me, not someone else, can help people? So we need self-awareness, know what makes us different from other people, because if we are all the same, like robots, well, no one will be interested in talking to us. So we need that piece of self-awareness and knowing and trying to work even in building something unique and different about ourselves. And in fact, we are all born unique and authentic. And we just need to discover what makes us unique, discover that gift and share it with the world. The second step is define our target audience and career goals. So do I want to be a coach only talking to people? Do I want to be coaching scientists? Or do I want to work in the food industry or in the critical mineral industry? We need to know what our career goals. So we know to whom we can talk. And then we need to develop that elevator pitch and craft our professional story. What's my story? In fact, if you go back, like when I started this presentation, I shared with you part of my personal and professional story. And this is what makes me unique compared to anyone else. And every one of us is the same. And then we need to develop that branding strategy, where to publish, where to build it, what and how. In the previous presentation, uh, Peggy told us about the difference between LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. The messages are different. If I am going to go to local networking events, how I show up, the way that I dress up, things are different. So we need to know how to build that identity, reputation, and brand, and where and how. For example, for me as a coach, I created a newsletter. I post regularly on LinkedIn. I have an Instagram account, but I don't care about it that much because I know that the scientists who I am talking to, they are 99.99% on LinkedIn. So I focus on that. So building that online presence should be really strategic. And I always say that we need to be one person. I don't go to Facebook and Instagram to show something and some parts of my personality that doesn't align with my personality on LinkedIn. I am one person. So I like to have that authentic personality and build on it. Of course, networking and collaborating. Networking is something very important, not only clicking that button and adding friends, building that connection, talking to them, asking questions, and trying to learn about other people so we learn even about ourselves. We need always to measure the impact of what we do. Maybe what we are doing is not useful for other people, or the message or the way that we are sharing it with the world is not the way that they want it. So in that regard, we learn, we reflect, and we always try to improve what we are doing. So this is something that I believe is very useful, especially for people who come to a new place, because it helps the new community to know you. If you go, for example, share music, share, present at a local event, participate in fundraising events, etc. All of that will help you be known in that community, help you be known in that new home, and of course will help you in your career and life goals. So there are so many goals. So I talked about the steps and the reason why we need to build that personal brand specifically for displaced people is because it highlights what makes us different. It gives us credibility. Because as I mentioned, in this new home, people don't know us. But in my LinkedIn profile or ResearchGate, if I have my publication from where from Syria or from my PhD in France, people will believe me and trust me. And when people know us, they trust us more. It gives us visibility. It helps us to network with people because once you have that network, people know you, things is like a snowball. It will increase, your network will expand. And communicating with people, sharing those stories will help us to adapt to the new environment and new country. So once we build that brand and people give us credibility, trust us, our network increases. Of course, it will help us to have more confidence in ourselves. And this will attract new opportunities in this new home. For the personal brand or building our personal brand, I always say the golden rules are, it's not what you say, it's how we say it to the world. So thank you so much for listening to me. If you want to connect with me or for the slides, just scan this barcode, QR code, and we can continue the conversation. And I'm more than happy to support people on this call or anyone else who is facing maybe similar challenges or situation, or just want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rana, for your presentation. I want to invite you all, if you have any questions for either of our presenters today, to drop them into the Q&A function on the meeting. And it looks like we've had a couple of questions come in during your presentation. So Rana, the first I see is, did you have to train yourself in a new area when you relocated? The question in the chat is, one of the temptations I'm facing is to retrain as a way of fitting in my new home.
So this goes back to what are our career goals. And once you identify your career goals, you identify the gap, and if there is a gap, yes, we need to retrain. And I can tell you, to be honest with you, the first 3 years in Canada, I didn't miss any learning opportunity around me. And of course, you might tell me, do you have the money? Of course not. I didn't have money at the time. I had financial, okay, not problems, but I was okay. However, I say to everyone, you know what? Honest to God, we are all sitting on a diamond mine. We have so many good resources and free resources that people don't even explore. I knew that at the University of Saskatchewan, there is the Center for Learning and Teaching. There is graduate student center. I was a faculty member in Syria for 10 years. However, I used to go for graduate student learning. I didn't mind sitting with students doing their master's and a PhD. I just wanted to learn. I was very humble and I learned so much about the grant writing because I identified few gaps and few opportunities. So if I improve them, I will move further in my career path because I will not be able to be a university professor here. So what else I can do? But I don't have money to do training. So what I did, I used all the free resources and they were very, very useful. So what my message, yes, we need to retrain sometimes, but it depends. I am a learner and sometimes I go to that rabbit hole of learning and internet and I am aware of that. So I identify a few goals and then I go further. We need to be humble and sometimes retrain because even if we did something in our own country, in the new country, the rules and the regulations are different. So we need to do that. And in fact, I don't know the number of training that I do on annual basis.
And you mentioned free resources. I want to go a little bit deeper into that. Could you talk about what types of free resources you used and how did you go about finding them?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. In fact, technically, they are not free. Like nothing is free, right? The university is paying for that to offer them as a service to the students or the faculty members. I was not a faculty member. The first time I went to a workshop for graduate students, I contacted the organizers and I said, I'm not a faculty member and I am not a student. However, I am on a limited budget. I have a visiting scholar position and I'm wondering if you accept that I attend that workshop. And they said, of course, you can come to any one of them. They were very happy that I even contacted them. My point here, ask the question. If it's not, because if the workshop is not free, like if you need to register for 25 or 100 or multiple $100s, no one will give it to you for free, right? But if it's free for their own students and you are part of that organization, just ask the question. And I was always supported. So as I mentioned, the free resources, for example, the resources paid by the university and available to every person, like English writing, grant writing, online presence, teaching. At certain point, the university has account with LinkedIn Learning. So I used to do so many classes from LinkedIn, but for free it was for free for me. There are so many organizations where I live, they support newcomers. They support them. So the government and other people are paying for those resources that we use. But what I noticed, in fact, that the number of attendance and people who ask for help is really very low.
I think it's
And
such
this
a
is
good point of
unfortunate.
just not being afraid to ask the question as long as you're approaching people, you know, with kindness and being polite. I think thinking about what types of opportunities are already, if you're in a temporary placement, whether that's at a university or an organization or a company, what are they already offering and what might you be able to take advantage of, even if it's not, you know, designed for you to be the audience, as you said, you were taking advantage of student resources. I
Yeah.
think it's a great thing to keep in mind. And even if you ask the question and they can't bring you in, maybe they know of another opportunity that they can provide or another
Absolutely.
link.
Yeah, so rejection to me, it's not personal. If it's rejected because there is something in the system they cannot afford or allow to. But me asking the question and getting this opportunity helped me with two things. First one is to get that training. Second one is to build the connection and network. And guess what? Many of the organizations that I started doing training with them, I became volunteer with them later. They became my reference later, my support later. It's all circle. So it was very helpful for me to start that journey and not being shy of asking that question.
Another question I have for you, Rana, is if there's, you know, one big lesson you wish you had known and been prepared with when you were coming into this move and this big transition, what do you wish you had known before you started that journey?
I think, to be honest, I was not aware enough of the employment environment. It took me a while to understand that if I knew from the beginning, I would be doing something different. The other thing, I was unable to find a mentor because I came to a place where I don't know anyone. So it took me at least a year until I got a mentor. And that mentor helped me so much, but I didn't know at the time that, you can have a coach. And the coach can help you in so many things, career planning, resume. I used to apply for jobs and get rejected all the time, and I didn't know why. And now, when I look at those applications, I just laugh at myself, but like these kind of things. So reach out, ask for mentors and coaches. There are nowadays like mentors and coaches you can find in so many areas in life, financial. Like try to find people who are really specific in certain areas because the path to success will be faster. And so many people, by the way, provide at least all coaches who I know, in fact, they provide one free strategic session. And if like anyone like try it, it's very useful and beneficial. And we have like, I know that in my city, we have so many pro bono hours that we offer for people who don't have or don't afford to pay.
That's wonderful advice. I want to invite any attendees, don't be shy. Please put any questions you have in the Q&A. I do want to mention one question that was already answered in the chat, brought up the question of as you know, an artist or a scholar at risk, how do you set up your LinkedIn in a way such that connections you might have at home don't check in on you or don't know your current location. And Peggy offered to look into that and provide a question later. So perhaps we can add that to the notes of the session on our website. I know that's probably a concern for multiple audience members, so I did want to flag that. And then a second question maybe to both of you that is in the Q&A is, how does one transition from one job to another when they move? Rana, you already spoke a little bit about trainings, but when we're thinking about branding and maybe our work experience doesn't align with where we want to go, how can we present ourselves on LinkedIn or just in general?
Mhm.
So you want me to answer
You go
that?
ahead.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I'm sure we each have some things, some thoughts there. Well, I did that actually. I was living in Amsterdam. I was 12 years outside of the US and then coming back, and I wanted to change, the industry I was working in. I wanted to move from academia to or and government to company work and really focus on sustainability. So I can speak from that angle. And just in general, I think one of the most important things is to identify what are your key skills and knowledge that are transferable. Because what the employer wants to know is that you'll be able to do the job, whatever the job is. And so instead of presenting things you've done, you talk about what you know how to do and what your skills are. You kind of take it and reframe it and repackage it. So I know there's a question in the Q&A about pivoting from teaching to human rights, for example. And so I think, one thing you can do, there's sort of two things you need to do. Reframe your skills to show how they're applicable in this new field. But the second thing, to Rana's point, is there's probably some investment you need to make to learn and become proficient and have a base level of understanding in the new field, right? So in terms of your skills, think about teaching and all the great skills you've acquired and deployed in teaching. You organize information, you can present effectively, you can manage, group dynamics, you can communicate, you can be a thought leader, probably are good at social media. I'm not a teacher, so I'm not as articulate as you could be about what is it you know how to do. And then how would that be applicable in the field of human rights? And then the second thing, though, I think you need to do if you're going to a new field is invest to some level of knowledge or expertise in that field. And like Rana said, you can volunteer, you can sit in on free classes, you can, look at conversation on LinkedIn, follow thought leaders in that field and organizations. One of the most important things that I did when I was making this career pivot from one continent, from Europe back to the United States and from government work to corporate work was I worked with a career coach and she did give me a free session and she said, go on LinkedIn or Indeed or, whatever job board you like and find 5 jobs that would be your dream job in environmental sustainability. For you, Donson, that's going to be find 5 jobs that you would love to do in human rights, because then you create a spreadsheet and you say, here in these job postings, these are the top, 5 skills that they're looking for to do that job. And here's like the top 3 or 4 types of experience or knowledge that they're looking for. And then you create a column and put in, do I have these skills? And you identify where the gaps are. And that way, very realistically, here's what the employers are looking for. Here's what I have to offer. How do I repackage some of it and how do I fill in those gaps? And a field like human rights is huge. So you have to know what are the issues and solutions in human rights, but you also have to know Like, what angle do I want to enter in? Do I want to be the social media person because that's the skill I have and I'm going to spread the word and raise awareness? Do I want to be the legal policy expert? Do I want to just be the, what else? I mean, you can work in those fields in many different angles. So think about what is your superpower that you want to contribute. So that's what I would say. Rana.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I wish when I came, I had this because it would be easier for me. Because I used to work, in fact, until midnight, wake up in the morning at 7, running like really very hard to work all these hours, right? To discover the solution. Well, so many people can help you with that. And I do that currently. So as you mentioned, firstly, identify those superpower, those gifts, those skills, transferable skills. So it's so funny sometimes, like, okay, I ask someone, like, what did you do when you came to Canada right away? You were, for example, working in banking in somewhere, and now you are working at a gas station. How can we write that in a resume? Like, I can't write it in a resume. It looks bad on my resume. So, no, it looks good. Let's say two things. Firstly, you write it and you say, it helped me to understand the culture in Canada because I used to talk to people. And then it gave me great customer service, or client service experience and communication skills. So we can, using these things, we can identify the transferable skills. And as you mentioned, Peggy, the exercise of finding 5 jobs or 3 jobs, wherever, is very important. And then find those people in LinkedIn who have the same job that we want and just follow them, follow what they want, study. I say to my to my students or to my coaches, study. It's like really study their LinkedIn profile, see where they were before, and then how did they move in their career, from, for example, being a lab manager to being a director of research and development. So see that transition in their career and put that plan for yourself. So that will inspire us to identify or craft the roadmap for that transition.
Thank you both so much for all of that wonderful advice. Do we have any other questions from the attendees today? Well, if not, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. I want to thank both of our speakers one more time and all of our attendees for joining. I hope this session was helpful and informative as you all think about your next career steps and how you can grow your professional networks. As we mentioned earlier, this session will be available to view on our website, onwardsproject.org. On our website, you can also join the mailing list to receive information about Onwards and our future events and workshops and view recordings of our past sessions. So once again, thank you all and have a good afternoon.